Okay, in this tutorial I'm just going to show you how to create a simple project plan in Microsoft Project. Now to get things moving, I've put some data into the side here, as you can see already. So I've got site setup, substructure, superstructure, and a bunch of tasks there as well. Now I haven't changed any of the default settings on MS Project. So when you run this thing up for the first time without changing any of its configurations, by default it will have the task mode set as you see it here. Or more correct, it's not set because it's got a question mark beside it. We'll deal with that later on. Now, one of the first things to do is to try and build up a work breakdown structure within the project itself. So this data here is currently flat, but we can start to build up the work breakdown structure by indenting the tasks under specific headings. So here I've got site setup, substructure, and superstructure, and the rest are just generic item names. So if I select all of these, like so, just by clicking on the column, the rows here, what I can do is push them underneath this one here. So if I click this button here, it's the indent button, like that, it puts them underneath site setup, and I can then hide and show those as necessary. Now, one of the things you'll note there is it now has a one-day question mark associated with it, and what that means is that it's looking at the durations of these items here and how they're sequenced, and it has estimated that there will be a duration in here. Now, because there's no data, it can't do that, so that's fine. We're going to put all that in a moment. So first of all, let's just finish creating the structure. So I've got a substructure work here, just indent that. Superstructure is going to be those 4 tasks, put those in. And here I've decided to create the internal fit out and split it into partitions and services. So first of all, taking these 2 items belong to partitions, so I can put that in there, and we get the same sort of behavior on the roll up. And I'm going to do the same on the services here, so I have 4 task items there, I can put those underneath. Now what I can do is grab all of these together and indent them underneath internal fit out, so they go in here. And what this means is that internal fit out consists of all of these items, PQ, RS, TU, and they have their own structure like so. All right, just keeps things together quite nice and neat. Final then is commission and handover, and we can see that there. So just indent those as well. Now, by default, it doesn't give you any work breakdown structure coding on the standard view. So to get that in there, what we can do is just draw out here and drop down this, create a new column, and we can call this work breakdown structure. So you can see there, we have all of these items with this coding system here. So 1 is the site setup, 2 is a substructure, and then each subtask will be given the next number along. Now, it's not much use to me there, so what I'm going to do is grab it and just pull it to this side here, and then just move it to there. Alright, so that gives us a decent look at what the substructure is. This is quite interesting actually, because what we can do now is if task S, if I have the code of this, then I know that task S belongs to the services, and this particular element of services belongs to the internal fit out, which is code 4. So this particular numbering system can be very useful to us. Now let's just get that over there. So that's just our starting point. So the next thing we need to do is start feeding in some task durations. Now ideally these should be measured in some shape or form, so we shouldn't be just, when it comes to project management or scheduling, it's generally not a good idea to allocate time. It's much better to figure out how long it's going to take to do something before trying to schedule against it. Subject for another day, I guess. Anyway, so let's just put in some data that we can play with here. So 4, 3, 4, 3. I'm going to move down to task E now. 3, 3. Now, if you start repeating data, as I did there, it'll ask you, do you want to, do bulk clicks and things like that? I tend not to, because it can make things a little bit nasty. So we're going to put in 1 day there and 7 there. For the superstructure then, 5, 8, 9, 10. You can do this a number of ways. You can use the roll-ups, the radio, or whatever scrolls are here. There we go. Put that into 5. I'll put this to 5 as well, just to show you that. Let's do 8, 7, 8, and 1. And finally 2, 5, and 6. Okay, so this is all showing up now. We have our durations in. And you can see here along the side, or in the graphics area, it has put our bars in. Now you can see also that they're not linked in any way. So what we need to do now is start setting up the predecessors. Now this is, again, another important aspect of scheduling. We schedule activities against their natural predecessors and successors as opposed to pushing the dates around here and here. The reason we want to do this is for tracking later on. If, for instance, I hard code dates against these and they miss or get started earlier or later, whatever, it's important to be able to track the knock-on effects of that, and we're going to see that in baselines at a later point. But if you're hard coding the start and finish dates without using the predecessors associated, you lose that opportunity, and you lose the opportunity to analyze the effects of any given delay or early start or whatever the case may be. So let's go ahead and do this. Now, I have tasks A, B, C, and D here, but if you look at this, it's a fairly natural structure here between site setup, substructure, super, internal fit out, and commission and handover. So what I'm going to do is simply set those up first. And what I can do is, because these are rolled up together, what I can do is set up each of these to be the predecessor of the other. So just scanning through them there, I can make the site setup a predecessor of the substructure. Now, the identifier for substructure is 6. So what I want to do in here is simply type in 6. Okay, so whoops, sorry, I should have typed in a 1 because that's the one I want. There we go. And you can see there that entire block has become a predecessor of that. I'm going to do the same here and get it right this time, and instead of superstructure there, I want the predecessor to be 6. So I'll put a 6 in here. That works. Internal fit out, well, that can't happen until the superstructure is up. So I'm going to type in 11 as a predecessor of this. And finally, the commission and handover, I'm going to have the predecessors of commission and handover being 16. Now, you could be a little bit more robust about this and say the commission and handover has to be preceded by all of these items here, all of this stuff, all 4 of those. And you could, in fact, put in 1, 6, 11, 16 in here. However, it's an unnecessary logic. Already we've cascaded these things through, so you're not going to see this starting until this has been finished. So the way the linking has been done, it's not necessary. But sometimes due to other considerations, you might have to. So let's just open out all these again. Let's have a look. And there we are. So you can see all of those in the window here. Now, you'll often find that your project will not fit all on the same, won't all fit in the graphics window. If that's the case, you can change things about here by looking at the timelines. And you can stretch those to suit yourself. So what I'll do here is just grab this and pull it over a little bit. And there we go. So we can see it all now. Next thing I want to do is start setting up the predecessors within the tasks themselves. And we only need to concern ourselves with the activities in here. Because we've already done the predecessor work up here, we don't have to consider anything else. So what I'm going to do now is for task 2, I'm going to say... Let's see, what I say is, well, A and B, I'm going to leave those alone, and I'll put in predecessor here of, say, 3 and 3. Now, a couple of things have happened. You will see that these are now linked. We can see the arrow there showing a finish to start relationship, which is the default. And we'll also see that it's put in some data here. So because these have now had some links on them, it knows how to put them together. Task A, you'll note nothing happened there, so we're going to have to do a little bit of work on that one at a later point. Okay, so next let's have a look at this one here. So let's go 7, 8, 9, just cascade them through. This one here, I'll do, say, 12, enter, 12, and 14. Okay. And again, we're kind of falling off the screen here, so if I just drag this out a bit, we can see what's happening. P and Q, maybe just make that 18, again, just one after the other. Next one's N, how about just putting in 21 and 22, again, they've just filled. And let's pull that out and have a look. And finally then, we're just going to do a sequence here, so 26 and 27. So all 3 of those activities will daisy chain together. Okay, so let's get a quick look on all this again. Just have a, seems to be all there, all good, wonderful. Now, back to the task modes thing here on the side. Now, because of the way we structured this thing, it set this particular activity, this parent, as an auto schedule activity. These ones here, it's set to manually scheduled, and this one here just doesn't know what to do, so I'm giving it enough information. Now, the introduction of this particular piece of functionality was probably, in my view, not the best thing to do. It certainly made it a lot more accessible, or MS Project as a piece of software, a lot more accessible to users, but I think they lost a bit of functionality and introduced a possible error here. Anyway, if you're doing this, I suggest very strongly that you change everything to auto-scheduled. Sorry, let's cancel out that. So task mode here, on each of those, you can just go to auto-scheduled. So I can change this to auto-scheduled, and when I do this, you will see some dates pop in there. And you'll also see on the Gantt chart itself that it has changed the coloring and how it displays these individual items. Again, when you're looking at Gantt charts, particularly the printouts, I suggest you familiarize yourself with this, because if you see a situation where it's using this kind of cyan color, then odds are the tasks have been manually scheduled and it could present problems in the project program itself. So let's just grab all of this and drag it down, changed all of those en masse, and there we are, we have our project schedule. So what do we need to do next? Well, we can have a look now at resources. So what I'm going to do is start applying resources to this, and hopefully we're going to build out a little bit of a cost profile. So what I'm going to do is switch over from the Gantt chart view to the resource sheet. And in this sheet here, what I can do is start putting in some resources. So I'm going to put in a project manager. I'll put in a construction manager. Let's just drag that out a bit. Let's see, site manager, supervisor, 1, and I'll put in supervisor 2. Now you can just put in that, and if you need, you can just edit these things afterwards. I just double clicked on that and just popped up that one, the little dialogue. So now I'm going to put in some staff. So staff A, staff B. And what I can do is just drag those. It'll just keep the same name. What I can do now is just constantly go in and out of them. Well, capital C might look a bit better. There we go. Let's go for D. And sure you can guess there will be an E and an F. Again, these can be whatever way you want to put them. I mean, it doesn't particularly care. You can put in actual names or you can put in job descriptions. It doesn't matter. Okay, they're all being assigned a type of resource as work. They can be material or they can be cost, and we're going to deal with that in another video. So what I do need to put in here, though, is some standard rates. I can put in overtime rates as well and a cost per use, but I'm going to keep it simple and just put in the standard rate. So give this one 120 an hour, 100, 100. Give our supervisors 60, and it's not even a case of giving them, it's actually what they cost us. And we'll just put 45 for all these. There we go. So now we have this data here. What we can do is start applying these resources to the activities on the Gantt chart. So we can just pop back into the Gantt chart, and under resource names here, we can use the drop down and select the resources that we want to use. So what I've decided to do is put the project manager and the construction manager on all of these top level items. And what that's going to do is assign these guys in at 100%. Which mightn't actually be the case. I mean, you'd be doing very well to have 2 managers over a short project, dedicating all of their time to it. Again, we're going to deal with that at a later date. So the next thing to do is start assigning in other resources. Now, actually, if we have a quick look, we can, again, drop down some of these. So we can put Let's put some supervisors actually on these. So let's put a supervisor here and another supervisor. Actually, I didn't need to put those guys on there. Let's take them off and put on super. There we go, they're off. And so I'm gonna start putting some staff on. So staff B. Now what I'm gonna do is start putting on a fairly high amount of staff. Because what I want to do is force a situation where we have resource over allocation. And we can see that happening here. When you see these red people appearing on the side here, what this is telling us is that one of the individuals working on this particular activity, in this case staff C and D, one or both in this case, are also assigned to another activity which is taking place at the same time. And this is what we would often refer to as a resource leveling problem, where we can only conduct a certain amount of work, depending on our staff availability. I mean, we can't split people into three. So there we go. So it's again, this a good bit of resource over allocation there. Maybe I'll throw a supervisor at some of this stuff as well. Give them something to do. Now you can do mass assignments on this as well, so you can just drag it down, put them all on. Of course that's going to lead to a conflict if activities are taking place at the same time, as you can see here. And let's just do that. Let's drag that one down as well. So there's all our staff on. Now if you think about this for a moment, what have we just done? We have created a situation now where a task, in this case task A, is going to take 4 days, and these people are working on it. Well, there's one individual, staff B. Now we also know another bit of information, which is that staff B is going to cost us 45 euros an hour. It's a fairly small jump to figure out that if you multiply 4 days by 8 hours by the cost of this individual, that you will figure out the cost of task A. And that's ultimately what this is about, and it really helps us to understand how money is accumulating against a project. Now to have a look at this, I can go into what's known as the resource usage, which is here. So again, drop down on this one and click on resource usage. And what it's showing you here is the project manager, construction manager, supervisor being over allocated, quite a few numbers of staff as well. So you can see for each resource what tasks they're assigned to and how many hours are associated with that. Over on the side here, it is showing us on a day-by-day basis how many hours they have allocated to the project. And if you take this case here, in the case of staff B, for instance, we can see that our staff B is allocated to both task A and to task B for 8 hours each time, and that's the over allocation there of 16 hours, and also on this day here. Now it's always useful to have a look at this problem before doing things like auto resource leveling, just so you can get an understanding of how serious the problem is and indeed where it is, because you'll often find that it's very easily solved without going anywhere near things like auto leveling. Now this is our next area here, comes up in red. Again, probably not the best choice for people that have colorblindness issues. And yeah, serious over allocation going on here for staff C. I'm looking for 24 hours worth of them here. Not clever. So probably going to have to deal with that. But if we look at other resources, they're probably, well, for instance, staff F here is not being used at all. So, you know, if there was cognate skill sets, you could probably bounce them from one place to another and flatten the problem yourself manually. Anyway, that's that. But it's not money yet. And in order to see the value of this in terms of money, what we need to do is go onto this details column here, right click, and from this what we can do is turn on cost. And then for each individual resources task allocation, we can now see both the hours applied, 8 hours, and the cost associated with it. So if you remember, our PM was 120 an hour. 8 by 120 gives us 960 euros. Generally that's too much information, you don't need to see that there. So what I often do is I'll just turn off the work and just get straight into the cost. Now if you want to, this could be a good point to try and extract the data from MS Project and into Excel and try and figure out how much this thing is going to cost you. I need to try and do this before you have leveled the resources. It'll give you a pretty good indication as a baseline start. So it's obviously there's other things to consider, things like materials and all the rest, which aren't included here. But we'll deal with that at a later date. Now, if we go back into the Gantt chart, there's a couple of things missing here. Well, first of all, we can see all of our staff allocations and lots of them. So they're appearing nicely on the Gantt chart. But what we don't get to see from this is the critical path. So in order to see that, we can go and have a look at the network diagram. Again, back into this view here and click on network diagram from the drop down. It takes a second, and there we go. So we can start to see this network diagram. So we can see here that most of these activities are critical, i.e. they're popping up in red. We have our non-critical activities, so A, just hovering over, D, K, this is a roll up here of the partition, so that's non-critical. And we have two non-critical activities underneath here. And again, the roll-ups actually work in here as well. But just be aware that you can hide off information that you might want in that process. So there we go, that's those. That's a nice way of looking at it. But it can also be useful to try and see it here. So if we have a look at this, we can pull up what's known as a detailed Gantt view. Now that is not available on this listing. So to get that up, we click More Views, and then we go to Detailed Gantt, which is right there. Then click Apply. And what this will do is it'll change a bit of stuff here. But what you can now see is the non-critical activities are shown in blue and critical activities are shown in red. And you can also see the float associated with any given path. That's an important point as well, is please understand that the float that you see is associated with the path and not the activity. And again, that'll be something subject to a later video tutorial. So I'm going to leave it there at that, and in later videos I'll get into resource leveling and things like that. Thank you very much.